Alright, ladies and gentlemen, you find me just walking along the beach, right underneath our silicon factory. This factory makes basically computers, circuit boards, heavy modular frames, and a few other things as well. It gets lots of stuff delivered up there, and it's connected to the road network already. It seems like a perfect place to slot in the motor factory right underneath it, just to make use of all the space that we have and some of the stuff that's in position already, like the roads and so on. It's also wedged between our copper factory and our coke factory, which makes various steel products over there. So when we make our motors and we feed it upstairs, hopefully into the silicon factory, we can actually just make modular engines right there. And this is going to be a local area where a lot of the exports get taken away. The remnant motors, the circuit boards, the computers, the heavy modular frames, they can be driven off to a nearby transport hub. At least that's the idea. So let's get started. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have our to-do list, foundations, machines, trucks, logic, the motors themselves. Then after that, we're building towards versatile frameworks, stators, automated wiring, and adaptive control units. So these are the things that are necessary, basically, to get to the next space elevator phase, which I don't think I managed very well, because I kind of just completely forgot about motors, and I forgot that we're not even automating smart plating either anymore. So some of those things need to be remedied, but we're in such a good position with these factories because they are so large. You know, a lot of the different ones that we have all over the place, they're so large they will definitely carry us through the next milestones just once we get to this pesky space elevator phase, or once we get it done. Alright, so without further delay, let's get building. I was just going to start placing foundations basically here. Go down 2 meter one. Just drag this out to here for now. Anyway, so yeah, I want to start on the inside and just basically lay out this entire concrete bottom floor. So a lot of foundation work is just going to happen here, and then we'll just resume once it's in place. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. Now, it's a little hard to see. The sun is setting. I've actually turned off global illumination. It's casting long shadows in here, and the mist makes it appear as if concrete just goes as far as the eye can see, which it kind of does. It just matches pretty much the roof that we have here. But the bit that I'm on right now is going to be the first little entrance for our road on the way in. You know me, I love having trucks deliver things in, so basically we have iron ore just on the crest of this hill, just right over there. There's 3 deposits. We actually only need 1, so I need 780 iron ore is what I need, and I also need 780 copper ore. Now, originally when I chose this location and I was deciding how to do this build, I thought, 780 copper ore, there's a pure node right over here that we're not using. Perfect, we'll just bring it in as well. It's going to be great. Then I realized that we don't really need it, because that 780 I had planned to refine into copper ingots using this recipe. Sorry, I can't remember the exact name, but alternate recipe 2 in my encyclopedia thing here. So 15 copper ore in, mix it with water, you get 37.5 out. That should be a familiar number if you've been watching the series before. That building there does this with about 400 refineries. So one copper miner, a pure node, 780 per minute, is basically works into 52 refineries. So then it's 52 times 37.5, you get 1,950. Now in that copper build, I called it a block. Alright, so that's one of the blocks. There's 13 of them. This is a huge amount. Just cranking out copper. And a lot of them are turned off. They just make ingots that aren't going anywhere. They haven't been assigned to anything, and the idea was that train station will carry it around the map in the future to deliver into factories that need copper ore. I almost broke my rule. I had said before, with building a build that big, we should never really have to make our own copper ever again until maybe the very end of the game. So if we want to want that to remain true, there was no real need to build 52 refineries in here, even though there is a node right next to us. Instead, this build is right next to us. And we actually, it's hard to see, but there's a bridge connecting the two now. So with this bridge, we'll bring copper ore over and feed it straight down and then into rows of refineries. And sorry, my bad. Forget the refineries. The copper ingots will be coming in. They're already being refined. So we're just going to take the ingots straight in and put them into constructors to make wire. We do make wire up there as well. There is an argument to be made that you could keep it in there and keep it local, but I'd rather actually just do it down here in a separate kind of area, just feed the ingots over. Basically, it's just for space reasons in that factory. I don't want to get into it. It's a whole, you know, I could go talk about it for 10 or 15 minutes trying to outline exactly why the space is the way it is, where things are going to go. It's a long story. The wire that's in there is about 2,000 per minute that's remaining, because we use some of it to make cable. What I actually need is about 3,800, and we'll get that out of all the copper ingots that are made here. So once we bring in the copper ingots, we'll just ship them over to an area, turn it into wire, And then that wire is going to mix, well, we'll get to it. It mixes and turns into stators and motors and all this different stuff, right? Stators and rotors, really. Okay, so with that in mind, let's build these truck stations, right? So we can actually deliver some stuff in. In fact, I just realized I have a mod to change the time of day. We can brighten things up this way. Just a bit. Well, it didn't really brighten anything up, but it's cleared the shadows a little bit. So if this is going to be our entrance in, what we are going to be delivering here now is iron. We're still going to bring that in, and also coal. So the interesting thing with coal is we're going to get it off from kind of far out this way. Basically, next to the lake, there is 4 coal deposits. So it's not too long of a drive just to bring it through the little crevices and cracks here. We have roads in place, and we have trucks actually doing that to go out and grab the quartz. So a very similar thing. Pull it down here and into a second station. So this will be the first station, I guess. So we'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4. And just get rid of this entire block. In fact, that might have been... It's not quite a blueprint, but I will just shift the blueprints here for a moment. Alright. So then we go with the open plan truck station. This has been a great blueprint for me. I've used it many, many times over. I'll just shift it into position. Perfect. Nice. Right. Now, I want to give pretty good distance all the way down to the next one. In fact, yeah, let's just do this and do this. So that's the road where we turn. I would say, actually, I might shift that other one back in a bit. But this would probably be a good location for it. So, about there. Bonk. So the reason for that is it's just away from the turn, which should make it just things a little bit easier, I think, anyway. So we'll just fill this in. Alright, after just a little adjustment there, so now we've got 2 truck stations. The one on the left is going to take in the iron, and the one on the right will take in the coal. So that one's going to be fairly busy, because there should be multiple trucks probably delivering to that one, but just one truck delivering to this one for now. So the amount we need is 1,448.5705 coal. Very specific number, but, you know, we'll bring in maybe slightly more. We can even use the excess to refuel both of these stations. This one for iron is just going to need 780 per minute, so that'll be straightforward. Alright, so let's work out the dimensions and the space that we're going to need for this. So I haven't got a floor plan for this. I'll probably give one out after it's built so that you guys can see exactly how it was built, but in my head, I'm just winging it. So, knowing that I'm just winging it, you can't always anticipate everything, so things might have to be amended, so you want to give ourselves lots of space between machines and blocks and groups, just in case any other walkways or logic needs to flow a certain direction. So we have our truck station right here, so I'm going to leave 1, 2, 3, 4 foundations of space between that and starting the actual blocks of refineries. So we need 23 refineries, so 22 refineries and one. Well, let's go through the math, and also let's have a look at our blueprints. So gonna load up this refinery 3, 2, actually that's not it, it's in here. There we go, refinery 3, 2 in, 1 out. And we'll make a little modification to it based on our needs. So I'm gonna be bringing in 780 iron ore. The consumption rate of every refinery is 35. So that means we can maintain 22.285714 refineries. Very long and specific number. So if we're bringing in 780, we know, for instance, that I would say already these belts are facing the wrong direction. So I'm going to have to rotate those ones. So I'm just basically going to make a modification to this existing blueprint. And we're also going to need a 480 belt. We'll also probably need a Mark II pipe underneath. So we'll just rotate that. And we'll have a look at what kind of lifts we need as well in a moment. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's our Mark IV belt connecting in. Simple as that. And then if we just look at the machine, what are they taking in? 35 per minute. So we do only need a Mark I, actually, for the ore. And then water-wise, we only need 20 per minute, so a Mark I pipe there is okay, but we'll need a Mark II here. Ooh, I'm low on plastic. Alright, I picked up a little bit of plastic, only had 200 with me. I might have to go make a run for more. But pipeline Mark II, no indicator. In you go. So that's that. Yeah, it might change the color scheme, might make it a bit more bland or a bit more default. I'm wondering, do I need these signs? There's only 24 refineries, so yeah, I guess so. It's not that bad. It'll look kind of nice. And that's pretty much it. We're not going to do the outputs. I know the blueprint itself says there's one output, but with volume like this, 13 iron ingots, and the space as tight as this, I don't think I'd want to put in a merger. We'll just build them ourselves, so that should be fine. So yeah, I'm going to have to just maybe make it an alteration to the color scheme, and then I'll save it out. All right, we're in business, so let's get started. So refinery 3, 2 in, 1 out. And we'll just lock the hologram in place. There we go. And align it with the foundations that we've put there. So 12 refineries is quite a nice number because it means that it ends up, the bounding box ends up on the edge of a foundation. So it's really good. Nice and tidy and neat. So that means we can just grab this one. And if we're going to put the outputs of this aligned with the center here, we'll just rotate this around. So this gives nice space for the output to flow somewhere, and then we have our inputs on this side again. So we'll do another 4, and that should be it. Alright, and there's our 24 machines. Now, if you remember, we only needed 22.28, I think it was, right? So something like that. So why are we doing 24? Well, we're going to underclock, we're going to balance both sides to be even. So the way we're going to do that is, if we just have a look at that number again, it was 22.28, blah, 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 blah. So we'll just pop this in brackets. I'm going to do this in a bit weird way, because I'm not very smart. So minus 22, we get rid of the initial 22. Then we're going to times it by 100. Now we have the percentage that one of them would have been underclocked to. But because we're splitting it between 2 rows, we basically want to divide that by 2. And then we get 14.285714. Very awkward and annoying number. We'll just copy this formula, though, and talk to our last machine on the row. And we'll pop it in here. Bonk. And there we go. Then we can just copy this and pop it into this one. And there we go. So now we have 2 rows that are going to be accepting the same amount of ore. And the ore should hopefully be traveling the correct direction now. Yeah, so all I got to do is just link these machines up to each other now. And then we'll move on. Alright, there we go. We've now painted all of the belts, adjusted all of the numbers of the machines. Things are looking good. We could just get rid of the paint on the concrete, I guess, which is just to help me align these things initially. Although it's probably going to be grip metal anyway. But just to clear it up for now. There we go. Now, in terms of doing their actual outputs and hooking up the power, we'll do that when we get to logistics, because we're going to be feeding in a lot of copper ingots, and the bridge connecting the 2 buildings is there, so it could potentially come straight down and feed in this direction, and depending on the height and things, you know, we'll just leave that until later. Don't want to kind of commit to a certain height and then realize we have to go up and over certain other things just for various reasons, so we'll just leave it as is for now. Interesting, I didn't really think about it, but this isn't aligned. But the blueprint is aligned with the actual foundation, but it's actually worked out kind of nicely because this also isn't aligned. So, obviously I did that totally on purpose. So it's going to just go straight in, actually, which is quite good. So we'll just put a lift somewhere here, feeding in. And this one can just go straight in like that. This could basically follow along until we get to somewhere like here. And then move back one. Yeah, so we'll have to go with a conveyor pole, stackable pole there. And this is just going to be pretty much aligned with here, I think. 1, 2. Let's see if I worked that out correctly. So the belt just travels straight along into its buddy. Oh, it only goes to there. Yeah. And that would go there, and that would go up. That actually does work, though. Okay. Yeah, it's actually clean. Nice. Good stuff. Just to make it look even a bit better, like it's actually supported on this side, which I feel like it would have to be. Let's give it a little stackable. There we go. Bit better, yeah? Good. Alright, so we'll just, I'll paint this as well. I'll try to paint as I go, actually, just to keep consistency. Alright, so very simply put, that is our iron ore now divided evenly between 2 rows of 12 machines each, refineries that are making iron ingots. The 12th of which is underclocked to about 14%. So the reason we've done that is 780 divided by 35, right? So 35 is how much each of these machines consume. That required 22.28 machines, or the equivalent. We've got that in place now. So the output was 65, so that's 1,448.571429. A very annoying and long number. Now, I've actually written this down in my calculations as 1,448.5705. We're actually making slightly more than that, so that's good, I guess, but I don't know where I would have come up with a different number for that. But anyway, so what we're going to do is feed that into 37 assemblers, or we'll see how many assemblers are needed for it. So what we're going to do is look up the I suppose I'll just copy this recipe for steel. And I'm using the second alternate recipe here. Alternate recipe, well, I suppose it's the first alternate recipe, but you know, the second recipe overall, that's in my list at least. And that is iron ingots and coal mixed together evenly, 40 and 40 per minute, to give you 60 per minute steel. It's not the most efficient recipe, but it is the most convenient based on the proximity of coal to where I am now and stuff like that. So I'm happy to use this one. It's just simple. It goes into a foundry. So I've got a blueprint for that. If we just open up the blueprint designer. We load this recipe, which again is the Stacked Foundry 6 steel. Now, I haven't actually hooked up their inputs yet. I'll do that in a moment, because I wasn't sure about what height I was going to feed these things in at. But we've seen this kind of layout before. I can't remember. I think it was the Iron Factory where I first kind of designed this sort of layout. Now, previously, I actually had these two upper and lower decks kind of combined, where the output of one would feed down into the other. We're not going to do that here. Got a bit messy and a bit complicated. We're just going to keep them separate. It's good to have two rows, though, 1 and 2, because we have two rows here, 1 and 2. So one of them is going to be dedicated to feeding the top, and the other dedicated to feeding the bottom. That should keep things hopefully easier to kind of figure out what's going wrong if something does go wrong. Right, so they're consuming 40 per minute, 40 iron ingots per minute. We had just said that we had 1448 ingots per minute coming out, so a really annoying number. We're going to be dealing with a lot of decimal points in this one, but it is what it is. Divided into 40, right? So that is 36.21 machines. So like I said, 37 assemblers with one of them underclocked, which I've actually written down correctly here to 21.42%, which is correct. So at least that math is checked out. Might be just a slight text error or something in my document. So yeah, 36.21428. So 37 machines. So I think we'll do what we just did before. We'll have separate rows of these. Yeah, we'll split it into quads. Just going to make it a bit interesting. Alrighty then. So I've got my materials. We should be good to start spamming out more of these machines now. Or these blueprints. So just go into blueprint mode. Yep, we're lined up. Good. Okay. As simple as that, I think. I think that's pretty much as far as we'll need to go. Because that's 4 of these. And then another 4 right in front. I believe is the way this is going to be done, because they'll be separated then. Yep. It should actually look quite nice together, I think, this way. Alright. So let me just do the math on that. That's 6 in total. 6 times 4. 6 times 8. So we put down 48 foundries. I only need 37, so I've obviously gone way over. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we need the 10th on each one. So I'm just going to get rid of these N2 on each blueprint and just clean it up a bit. Alright, so I've got it. So 780. Well, actually, we can actually follow the chain of math if people are just maybe interested. So 780 is the iron ore coming in, divided by the 35 intake of refineries. So that gives us a result. Times that by the 65 output of those machines gives us another result. Divided by the 40 intake of the foundries times the 60 output of the foundries means that we're going to be producing 2,172.857143 steel ingots per minute. And then we got to do something with that. We got to put that into some constructors. Can I build a constructor even right now? I can. And we're going to be making steel pipe. So it's going to require 30 in. So if we just now pop this in brackets and then divide it by 30, we get the number. So it should be, before I even type this in, if my math is right, it'll be 73 constructors, or 72.4285. Let's see. So dividing it by 30. Boom. There we go. That's the number we like to see. You always know things are good. I've been doing taxes recently and trying to understand taxes and things better, because I've been doing them for years. I've been doing this full time for many years, but recently had quite a high tax bill, and I was like, okay, let me just make sure that this is operating correctly. So put in all the numbers, and then I get my result before I wanted to be told the result. So I'm like, it should be this, and that way you can definitely know that you understand the problem, right? If you can predict the outcome, basically. So I'm trying to get better with math. Anyways, 72 constructors then, and they're going to be making, I guess, 20 per minute, right? So 73 constructors, 1 underclocked, but producing 20 per minute will give us... Well, that's super interesting. 1448.571. That's interesting because that's almost You get 57.14. Anyway, there's just some interesting reverse math going on. Sorry, I probably just got really distracted. I kind of geeked out for a second because this output of steel pipe, which as far as I can tell is correct, this number actually is coincidentally related to the beginning of the chain. The amount of refineries that we have is 28.5714. So to see 5714 appear again like that, it's just strange. And the 1448 as well, because that's exactly how many ingots we get out. So it's just weird. I guess that's good math design though from Coffee Stain. Anyways, yeah, so that's the that'll be the steel pipes situation. So we need 73 of those constructors. So I'm tempted to build a sort of alley that leads all the way out, and then on the other side of this road have a room dedicated to constructors, because let's leave that for now. What we also know that we have coming in at this point in the chain, just the point before the constructors, where we just have ingots. Right now we have steel ingots, but now we also should have the copper ingots coming in, and there's going to be 1,950 of them. They need to go into 130 constructors. It's a lot of constructors. Probably going to do it over there. I'm just wondering if I should also do the steel over there. So I'll have to just think for a few minutes and work out this layout. Alright, so there we have our double row of iron in the distance. We have our double row of, or conveyor belts of coal. One goes up here, and that will then split into this group. And we're going to have to do the same sort of thing over here, where we split into there. So I just need to give us a little bit more room. Alright, so that splits into there. This one's just going to have to go travel along to here. And in. Alright. Little tip. I mean, most people know this, but I've seen a few comments where people just every now and then say they didn't know. This actually works as a ladder. It's kind of nice. Yeah, pretty good. So I tend to use these a lot and leave them there because they're functional, I guess. Alright, so that's it. That's coal fed into these groups. So we haven't actually fed the iron ingots in. We'll do that maybe a little later in the logistics section. Alright, so thinking about where the constructors are going to go, we need 130 at first, and then another 73. So probably that's going to be rounded up to like 80 with some of the underclocking that's going to happen. So I decided to pave out this large area here out on the water. Probably won't need all of it. I mean, I might need all of this, but I don't think I'll need all of this. We'll see. I don't mind cutting away some of that after we see how much we're going to actually use. Now, the copper is going to be traveling along this sky bridge, and probably when it reaches here, just comes straight down and then cut over to the left. Something like that is what I would assume is going to happen. Now, we've got 1,950 copper per minute, copper ingots, that are going to be flowing into here that need to be made into wire in 130 constructors. So I've developed a new blueprint called Stacked Constructors 12, set to wire. So pretty self-explanatory. We've used this sort of stacked constructor blueprint before. And yeah, as you can see, it's nothing that crazy. 4 on the bottom, 4 in the middle, and 4 on top. The reason I went with 3, well, that's actually kind of the height limit of the blueprint anyway, but I was thinking of doing 3 just so we have a nice splitter that can just split between the 3 rows without needing to complicate the logistics too much. I've colored that tile pink just to line up with where I think we're not going to run into any rocks or anything, and I've given myself enough distance to be able to walk back and forth and also have some belts travel back and forth. Same with here, 3 foundations out. So that's the first one right there. We'll just nail that one down, although I think actually the machines are facing the wrong way. Oh no, they're right, they're correct. And just rotate this around as well. There we go. So let's talk about the math and how I'm dividing this up. It's kind of experimental, but here's what we got. So 1950 is the amount we're bringing in. I'm going to have 4 rows of this, right? So this is 1 row. So we're going to have 1, then 2, then 3, and then 4 as we go up. The reason for that was I just thought it gives us 487.5 traveling on the belt. It's just kind of a nice number, and it breaks it up so we don't have to stack. Because I thought, like, okay, you know, I'm kind of tempted these days to start building tall and layering things up and up and up, because as you see with some of my factories, I build very long rectangles. And it's like, well, we've got a lot more real estate if we go up high. So I did think about it, but for this, 4 rows seems reasonable, and we're going up another layer that I don't normally do. So I'm still getting a little bit more adventurous, but not too much just yet. But it's an ambition I have for the future for sure, is to go taller and make getting up and down easier as well. Anyways, so that's 19, 50 by 4, and then each machine consumes 15. The only problem here is, while there's 12 in a blueprint, so that's 12, 24, and 36, we need 32.5. So I'll have to work out which ones need to be underclocked and removed. Yeah, because it's 32.5 divided by 3. So really we need 10.8 machines on each row. So there's 12 on each row. So we could get rid of the 12th machine, and the 11th we could underclock to 83. So I'll probably do something like that. Or maybe just to keep the aesthetics of the 12 and going up against this foundation here, maybe just underclock the last two. So instead of 83, they'd be underclocked to 41.5 or something, you know? So I'll work that out a bit later, but I just thought I would show that. That's kind of the idea behind it. So let's go with the next group over. So again, we want to make sure we're facing the right direction. Yeah. Alright, we're halfway done. Needed a huge... It took me so long to get all this stuff together here, by the way. I'll just take as much as I can. That should be it. This is just for the wire ones. I still have the steel pipes to go. It also helps with the output as well, not being too crazy to break it up this way. I'm missing a rod. Well, we can get the rod out of this thing. There we go. So just like that, we've built 36 times 4, 144 constructors. So we only need 130. Like I said, we'll underclock those ones on the end. But it looks good, right? Clean. Again, these stacked constructors with the different little layers we can walk on, and now that they actually just push up against each other, I think it keeps things looking quite organized, quite clean. And then it gives us just the inputs and the outputs on the sides to deal with and how we merge these things up.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I've just taken a quick break from the recording. I'm back now, refreshed after a couple of hours, but I was still working a little bit behind the scenes, so I've connected the blueprints to each other now. All the wiring's hooked up, the different belts are hooked up, and I was just going over some of the numbers generally. I've also gathered the material for the next layer of machines we need. So of course, this is taking in the copper ingots and turning it all into a tremendous amount of wire. Next, we need a series of constructors that are taking in the steel ingots that we're making over there in our new foundries. So we're going to be taking in the steel ingots and making steel pipe. So let's get to it. We have a new blueprint for this. Stacked constructors, 12 pipe, exact same as the ones that you see in front of me, except they just have a different recipe set and slightly different belt speeds, I think. But other than that, they should be basically the same. So just lock these in. We need 6 of them in total, because we're going to be needing 73 constructors. So what's 6 times 12? It's 72. So one of these might have to be overclocked. Generally, in this series, the rule is, you know, typically you want to save your power shards for extractors, right? Either be oil or mining or gas. But I think I can make the exception just to keep my symmetry. I don't want to add just one extra machine on the end or something. So I'll probably just throw in a power shard onto one of these. We'll talk about that when we get to logistics later, but it's as easy as that. It took me a while to get those materials together, but now I just have to do the same here. Just hook these ones up as well. And this still leaves about another 200 machines we still have to add. So I need 58 assemblers doing stators, 58 doing rotors, 28 doing motors, and then we have to add in the water extractors and some of the miners and truck stations and stuff as well. So, ow. Still quite a bit to go. Alright, so next in is 58 assemblers that are assigned to stators, and then we gotta do 58 assemblers that are assigned to rotors. So we'll do these stators first. So, let me just type stator. There we go. So another stacked assemblers, you know, pretty straightforward. 6 assemblers in total built into the blueprint. We're gonna start it in line with the kind of truck side of things, because I'm going to have to add an additional one on the end, which is going to be a bit awkward. So flip it around the other way, bonk, and hopefully I've got my directions right on this. So just put down the first 3, I guess, and I'll just check them. So yeah, it's going to need another assembler on this side. That'll come out just a little bit further. But just watching where I'm feeding them, are they both being fed in from the left? Yes, good. And their output should be going out to the left. Yep. Alright, nice. So that'll be easy enough to hook up. So that's just one row. We need 3. So let's just slam them down. Make sure they're all facing out the same way. Man, the logistics section is going to be a pain in the butt. I can feel it, because there's so much to consider with how we feed these things. Now, 18 times 3, that's 54. Because there's 18 on each row now, right? So it's... well, actually, that's not even true. Hang on. That's 6, 12, 18. Oh, no, it is true. Right. So we've got 18. We've got 3 rows of 18. So that's 54. We need 58. And the 58th machine is actually underclocked. So I'm thinking... I suppose the easiest way to do it is just to really just spam out another... God, I'm out of material again. Just spam out another one here. So that'll be 50, 55, 56, 57. And then we could do one here, here, and there, and just underclock those 3. And that can get us to the 58 that we need. And that way at least it'll be even. So, yep, I'm going to have to go fetch... Actually, no, I think I've got enough material here now. Oh, man. Alright, these connections, despite... It's so strange, like, there's way more constructors, but I feel like I took much longer with this one. I guess it's because I had to add on those extra machines as well. Anyways, they're all in place now. We'll talk about the numbers a little bit later, but it's, you know, it's the equivalent of 58 assemblers, effectively, that are going to be doing stators. Now, we've got a little bit of a problem. This thing. It's in the way. Can't get rid of it. Don't want to shift over the machine, so we're just going to build over it. I can't. You don't even collide with it, it seems. So, not sure what's going on there. What about these ones? Yeah, same. So, don't know what's happening there, but we're just going to build over it and try to ignore it, because it is just a small piece. This section here, I might build up and over, so at least it looks a bit more natural. But, yeah, bit of a shame with that one right there. That's interesting. The ping has collision. Yeah, it's clearly detected. But when I... Huh. Well, who the hell knows? Alright, so, let's get this. We're going to switch now to the S-rotor. So it's called S-rotor because I already have a blueprint called Stacked Assemblers Rotors. These are steel rotors, and their directions of belts are slightly different to match this factory. So, steel rotors are just the alternate recipe, which you can take a look at in a moment. We have to use the exact same amount, so same layout would be good. So, 3 rows. Wow, good job on the game handling all that, huh? Just all that simultaneous building. Oh, alright. I know it's just like, oh, I'm just clicking buttons, but I've taken a long time to gather all these materials and everything, so, you know, it takes a bit of effort. So, steel pipe and wire creates rotors, which is what we like to see. And then down here, we have the same thing, but making stators. Steel pipe and wire, just different amounts, and then we get stators. I'm just going to copy that recipe. Have I pasted it into these machines? Yeah, I think I have. It's always one of those things that you could forget to do and trips you up. No, looks like we're good. Alright, so the next 58 are almost in position. I'm just going to add that extra layer out this side, and then that'll be that. And then hook all of these ones up as well. After this, we're going to build a final amount of assemblers that are going to be doing motors. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, after much running back and forth, the assemblers are finally in place, or almost all of them, for all the stators and rotors. We just need to adjust and fine-tune some of the numbers to make sure they work, but hopefully now they've been tidied up with cables, their belts should all be connecting, they should be pretty much ready to go. Just some under and overclocking needed, and maybe a few of those cosmetics need to be adjusted. We're missing some lights here. But anyways, here is where we're going to do the final batch of assemblers. Let's just pop them down and we can talk through why I've gone with this location. In fact, just very quickly, let me grab that and then do this, and there we go. Motors. So, it's the very same type of blueprint, stacked assemblers, 6 of them in total, except this time we're going to turn sideways and pull it back to the very edge here. So, we're feeding in from this side where I'm looking right now and aiming away from me. So we'll just put one there. So we need 28 in total. Working with blueprints of 6, so we're going to go with, what is it, 36, I guess? And then we'll chop away 8 on the ends, and that should work out. Is this correct? Why does this look wrong to me? No, it's all good. Okay, right, cool. And then we'll just match it on this side. See if I've done that right. Yeah, it looks good to me. Alright, cool. So, why have we gone with this location? Why are we turning sideways, etc.? So all of the outputs of all these machines and their inputs come from here, this big open area. So I wanted it to be nice and open because we're going to be traveling belts all along it, up and down and over each other to get into these various places. Everything that comes out of these machines rolls into this area. Everything that goes in comes from this area. The other reason we're having the motors here is because right above is a complete blank slate where there's just nothing there. To the right, there's manufacturers that are making heavy modular frames. Here, there's regular modular frames, and then there's rows of silicon machines all like everywhere else. So there's a nice open patch right above this location with nothing else there. So out of these outputs, we can basically just grab them and just send them straight up onto floor holes, through floor holes that go upstairs, and then bring them to either machines where we make modular engines. So we're going to be feeding in the motors, feeding in the rubber. If you remember, this factory takes in rubber too. And then smart plating. That's one aspect I haven't actually really accounted for just yet, but we'll get there. It's not too difficult to make some smart plating, at least in small quantities. So that'll be the modular engines. Ultimately then, as well, we'll have room for the adaptive control units. So that's going to take the circuit boards, the heavy modular frames, the computers. That's all made here as well. And then automated wiring. That's something we do need to make. So we need to mix stators and cable. So that'll be in the next episode. But the cable will come from the copper factory. And we can also make some stators over there. It's a whole thing. But yeah, that'll be almost everything then, just to get the next space elevator phase done. This would be a nice factory. It turns out like this grew organically into something much bigger than I originally intended. It was supposed to be just a silica factory. Then it became silicon, doing computers and a few other things. Then we upgraded it to have heavy modular frames. Now we're upgrading it to do space elevator parts. Just because of its proximity to steel and copper, it just seemed like, oh my god! It's okay. I survived. So I'm just going to connect these to each other, make sure they're all working and everything. And what we're going to have to do here as well is just chop away the end 4 machines. So the bottom row 4 and the top row 4. And that should give us 28 in total. You know what? I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking it's... I don't know. There's something about it that I'd like to change, but I don't know if I'm just being really picky. I'm thinking it should go... Let's say it's horizontal now. It should go vertical. So be kind of out there. Alright, just like that. So I believe all of them need to be at 100%. In fact, we actually, thinking about it, only need 4. So we could get rid of the one in the end here. And yeah, we could say the one on the end is going to run at 71, I think. 71.4283%. Sorry, autosave. So if we have just a quick look at 445.714, another way we could do that is we could just divide it by 4. And then we know that we have to set every machine to 111.428571. So I might just do that instead. And that way they're all clocked the same. Something about clocking just one machine lower kind of starting to bother me. Don't know why. But yeah, unfortunately we can't copy the actual rate that comes out of these machines. Don't know why, but we can just paste the formula in here, the same one. And now they'll all be running at the same clock speed. Now, they normally consume 20 megawatts, but slightly underclocking them 8% down. It means to save a little bit of power across the board. So yeah, alright. There we go. I wonder, do you save more power underclocking 1? Or do you save more power evenly underclocking 4? Just a little bit. Alright, so we have a pure iron node right here. Our main factory is this area here. This is kind of the little ramp that leads straight down, so we're really close by. So I'm just going to have to cut down a little bit of the foliage around here. And then we'll build a little truck station here, and it's just going to roll down, go in, and then maybe we'll circle around and come up and feed back out. That seems like it would work quite nicely. Alright, so I've just gotten done doing a little bit of landscaping here, and we can kind of go for a little drive and talk about where the route's going to go. So this is the main road that leads back to the copper factory. Underneath we have the limestone area, which is being fed into the silicon factory. So now we've got this really odd looking ramp. I used 2 pieces, the double ramp 8 and then the double ramp 4. I wanted to have the incline kind of taper off a little bit. Not that it's necessary, I just thought visually it might be better than just such a strong incline. And why not just go with a 4, a lesser incline the whole way? Well, because this is sort of a natural crossroads here. So beneath me is a road, you know, going straight this way. And it does actually continue up there. There's a road up there too. Hard to see, but there it is in the distance. So I didn't want to come too far forward. It was kind of coming to this point here and just a bit too far forward over, I would say.
So it had to be tucked in, so I had to use a steeper incline. And then our truck's going to be able to come along, pick it up. Once we pick it up, we head out this way. And then what we will do is just circle down the ramp and straight into our factory there, right? So our first entrance is just there on the left. Just going to get rid of this. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we have it. Our little truck station platform. So a little ramp that leads up and down and circles around for us to pick up the coal. So we've got 2 belts feeding in, leading to 2 deposits each. So the first 2 are here. Each one is doing 240 per minute, because that's the best we can handle, because we're merging the belts to be a 480 belt. Obviously in the future we'll add these to be a 780 belt, because we're looking to get 1500 in total. Right now, just with the deposits and the miners that we have, we'd be able to get 1200, because we could bring them all the way up to 300 per minute, but really 240 is all we can handle if we want the machines to continuously run and not sputter after we do the merge here. So they'll merge and they'll travel along this belt, both of them go in and ready to be picked up. So that's the situation. We might need 2 trucks because the distance all the way over to our silicon slash whatever factory now. I guess we'll just keep calling it the silicon factory. That does lots of other things too. But yeah, so it's really a space elevator parts factory now. That's what it's becoming. So the distance to get over there is a little bit longer, so we'll probably need 2 trucks in rotation, similar to how we have quartz extraction going on right now. So yeah, I actually might update the map just to say that this is coal extraction. I often find myself walking this little nature trail here, just outside the Copper Caterium factory, and just having it poke through the shrubbery now and then. I'm just like, holy crap, it's so big. So it's really cool. But anyway, let's venture in and take a look at the power control room, and then we can kind of get a sense of what we're going to need and how we're going to move the copper along. So this is the copper sheet floor, all the logistics for that, and then some of the copper that's flowing along here is going into the, oh man, the belt release room before it wraps around the entire factory. That's the Caterium section and so on. But we'll just head upstairs. Again, there's parts of this place that isn't quite done, like we just have a giant power tower just sitting in here. But here's our power control room. So I've been mapping out what the factory does for... Right, so it's easy to get distracted and go off on a million different tangents when in this factory it's so crazy and just so complicated because it's so large. Even though it doesn't do anything other than just some basic goods like wire, cable, quick wire, the scale is really what, you know, makes everything so daunting in here. But anyway, that's what these diagrams are trying to address and try to break down the factory to make it easy to understand and easy to know where things are going, where they're coming from, and so on. So I wanted to build that picture. I have it outside the game, but I'm trying to put it in the game so that people that load the save can just see at a glance. And also, it's kind of cool, right? So the copper refineries, here they are. So every block has 26 refineries in it. So every block is broken into 2 rows of 13 machines. So 26 refineries times their output, which is 37.5, would be 975. It's just a bit too big for one belt, which is why we kind of break every block into 2, and then you get 487.5 out. So each little output here is 487.5, 487.5, and this one's 487.5. So if it has an X, that 487.5 isn't going anywhere. Right, we haven't assigned it anywhere yet. So there's lots of blocks available. The ones that aren't available are the ones that have already been assigned to either quick wire or wire, and then some things get sub-refined again, like the wire gets turned into cable later on down the line. So what we need is 52 machines, which is basically saying that we need 2 blocks. So I haven't decided which ones yet. Maybe C and D will then assign to going into the motor factory. So I'll put a little motor symbol on these, and that's how we'll know. Now, in the case of something like the copper sheets, we're actually using copper sheets in that silicon factory now, the one that's just above the motor factory. Basically the same factory, right? So 487.5, 3 lots of that from G1, G2, and N2. So this is, you know, G1 and G2, and then we have N1, which isn't going anywhere, and N2, which is. So N2, G1, G2, excuse me. When you add all that together, that's 1462. That's flowing along into the copper sheet refineries, which also have their own water extractors. And we get the exact same amount out, actually. We get 1462 copper sheets. So all of the ingots get refined into 1-to-1 copper sheets. Now, where it gets complicated is some of that starts to break off and go different ways. On the kind of blue chain here, we have 600 of it being parsed off to go into AI limiters. The AI limiters just sit in storage. They don't go anywhere else. That's why there's a storage bin next to them. So we make 120 in total. If we branch off in the other direction, we have 862.5, the remainder branching off, going into storage. And now out of that storage, we're also pulling off 606.667 to go into the silicon factory to be made into circuit boards. So that leaves us with 255.833 per minute available in this factory, which I use for building and a few other things. But obviously that's a lot. We could still use it for some other production later on down the line. So that's kind of how the overall diagram is broken down. So what we got to do, or what I got to do, is run around now and figure out which ones are closest enough to the exit that would make sense for us to activate those blocks. And then what we'll do is we'll just flick on the switches that are necessary. So if I decide to go with block K, we'll turn on the refinery block, we'll fill up the water, and then we'll release the ore. It's as easy as that. It's actually pretty fun. Right, so let's figure it out. Alright, so it's also worth mentioning that this is the floor where all of the copper ore feeds into the factory, and then it gets refined into the ingots. So it's a busy floor. It's doing a lot. It's all of the copper ingot refineries that you see ultimately all feed up to these 8 floor holes. And there's, I think, 16, 8, 16, 24. It's probably about 30 floor holes in total that they make their way up to. And they're all labeled, so we just know that, you know, B1 and B2, that's a block in itself. A1 and A2, that's a block in itself. Now, I was thinking of grabbing the ones that are actually positioned up this way, because I don't know if they're currently assigned. I'll have to have a look. But that's H and I block. So that might be a good one to just go grab those. So currently they flow down into here. So H1, H2, I1, I2. So we could grab those 4. So I'll just go upstairs and we'll see where they are. Right, so I've just turned off global illumination so we can get a better look. So this is H and I, these 4 outputs right here. So we're going to pull those up, and we're actually going to go to the left of the sort of bus that we have traveling along here right now. And I've just cut a hole open in the sky bridge right here so we can kind of see what's going on. So if I put the doorway back in here, because it was actually moved over. So the doorway could go here, and then we could have a slot here and a slot here for 2 wall holes. Like that. And then we could travel our 4 belts along and then just bring them straight down, and then they're going to go in there ultimately. So, yeah, that seems fine to me. So each one is going to be carrying 487.5. And we'll have to figure out how we can divide that up into the copper blocks, but the wire blocks, but I'm sure that's going to be fine. Oh, actually, I could see why I did it that way. It's because the staircase moves over. Okay, well, I'll actually move out a bit further then. So this is going to be quite the bridge. This is turning into... The factory is just expanding, isn't it? At this point, it's not a connecting bridge. It's just a way to get to another part of this ever-growing factory. Alright, so that's going to be our copper ingots now traveling along 487.5 on each belt, because that's what half of a refinement block does, and we're sending 2 blocks over. So it's 487.5 in each belt. Quite interesting, right? We've got 4 rows. 1, 2, 3, and 4, all doing wire of machines, so it's 130 in total. 130 constructors, all consuming 15 per minute, right? So it's 130 times 15, sorry. It's 1,950 copper ingots is needed. Now we've got 4 groups. If we divide it by 4, boom, 487.5. So that means that 1 belt has to go into every group. So that should make logistics just a little easier. So what we also have to do that to make it easier is we could put down our blueprints for, let me just type splitter version 1, I believe is the one we want. So this is the one that'll be on the ground, and we'll just stick it like it's coming in from the left, so right there, and that should have the height appropriate to go into these blocks. So we'll do 1 right there and another one here. I guess to alternate, we'll do the version 2 here. Maybe that'd be better. So I'll just plug straight in. I'll have to rebuild that, but... yeah, God, it's awkward when it's raised to see exactly where the hologram is. Is that correct? That looks correct to me. Yes, that's number 2. And then we'll do... it's going to take a while to find that one again, but version 1, there we go. Alright, version 1, super easy. Just pop it right there. Version 2, not so easy. Pop it right there. I think that's basically it. Yep.
Now, I don't know if that's actually connected, so I'm just going to rebuild that one, just to be sure. Cool. And we'll just make sure that this feeds straight in as well. And there. Right, and then we just have to do the same for up top. So the middle layer, feed that one in. Feed that in. So super easy. Do the same here. Cool. And 2 more times. Man, it just works, huh? Alright, cool. That's all our splitting needed. Right, so now we just need to feed 1 belt into each row over here. So we've got this through line right here. I'm going to use this one first. The steel pipe will probably travel on the outside, would it? Or would that travel on the inside? Let me just think. So steel ingots, sorry, will be traveling along. Yeah, probably along the inside, actually. Okay, so we'll use this outside bit. Might just extend this over just to give us a bit of extra room, just in case we need it. Had a slight alignment error just there, so just realign that belt to make sure it's okay. But that should be it now. So nice and straight, the belts are following each other, and each one is breaking off into each group. So that's it. That's all the wire now hooked up. That's our copper ingots. Once we turn on blocks H and I, copper ingots will flow and make their way down into these wire constructors. As simple as that. That's just the inputs though. Still need to do the outputs for, yeah, gathering up all that copper and piling it together and then sending it back into the kind of main underneath basement factory thing so we can send it over towards the stators and stuff. Alright, so I've just been doing some of the logistics, starting to pull some of the belts out from the wire, curl it around, and then bring it over towards where it has to go. Now, this is basically where I decided, like, okay, I'm just going to start working on this area and I'll, you know, patch that up in a moment. But I realized that my math is slightly off, which is always a terrifying prospect when you're this deep into a build. It's nothing too bad, but it did give me 30 minutes of, like, just scratching my head wondering why numbers weren't adding up properly. So basically, let's see, what's the best way to introduce this? So we have our rows of assemblers here. The first 3 rows in front of me are doing stators. I had said that I needed 57.8 stators, something like that. So 58 assemblers, basically, one of them underclocked. And then we underclocked all the machines to kind of match that number in terms of their output. Turns out I actually need 54. Just 54 assemblers, and you wouldn't need to underclock or overclock any of them. Now, I've actually got 60 in place anyway, so I have underclocked them. And it turns out it works out kind of a nice number that way. So every machine is doing 4.5 per minute. Now, again, it's a waste of assemblers. It's just, I had them in place, so I just figured we'll downclock or underclock all of them to have the exact same number across the board. So it's the same equivalent of having just 54 of them all at 100%. Instead, I've got 60, and they're all at 90%. So that's basically it. But anyway, I figured that number out. Everything else numbers-wise is actually totally fine. The thing that made me realize the numbers weren't adding up was that each of these belts that are coming in here, right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 outputs, and then 1, 2, 3 rows, right? So 3 rows and 4 outputs. So let's say 4 groups with 3 rows each. That means there's going to be 12 belts rolling along here, right? So it's a lot of belts. Now, each belt is putting out 325. So you could merge them, merge 2 belts, for instance, you get 650. But let's just say, for sake of argument, 325 is flowing along every single belt here. Now, for the stators, they actually require slightly more than that, which is the kind of annoying thing. So the stators, they require 36 wire. There's 10 machines here, so they need 360. So 360 minus 325 leaves us with 35. So we're short. This belt that comes in here is going to be short 35. Okay? So what's the solution to this? Well, as the belts continue on and feed the rotors need slightly less wire. So let's have a look at how much wire they would require. So it's 28.98. Now there's 10 machines, so we'll say 289.8. Okay? So 289.8. Remember, we're feeding belts of 325, so 325 minus 289.8 is 35.2. One thing that's kind of confused me is why I have 0.2 left over, but I'll figure that out later. It's good to be over rather than under anyway, so it's not really a problem. But 35 is kind of the number we want. So what this basically means is every belt that's going into a group here for rotors is slightly over. It's over by 35. And every belt that's going into the stators is short by 35. Alright, so it's pretty obvious what we gotta do. At least to me. There's multiple ways of doing it, but we take that 35 and we send it over to the original group. So that's basically how it's gonna work. So all of these belts stay the exact same. They all stay at 325 per minute. And when they feed into the rotors, the excess, the overflow, goes out of a smart splitter, and it goes up and over and down to the first group there. So that's the first group for stators, and this is the first group for rotors. So that way all the belts are going to be the same length. I could have just sent this one straight into there, nice and close, but then the ones on the end would have to go really far. So instead, I'm going to just have them all go at the same pace. So I've only done just one right now, the top and bottom, but that's how it's working out. So it's actually quite nice, you know, it's like the 35 extra should just even out the amount that we're short. Why I have 0.2 extra, I have no idea. It could be a rounding error, because when I math it out on paper, all of the wire we produce is consumed in all of the machines, but for some reason this sounds like we have a slight 0.2 extra per minute, but I doubt it. Anyways, so the way we're going to do this then, we'll just do it to the next row. So there's actually 3 foundations here. I'm going to do another row here and another row here, and that should fix all of the groups. So yeah, very simply, I guess we'll just go something like this. Well, actually, I'll probably start in the center of the foundation. So I just thought I would show it at least once, and I'll do the rest on my own. So there's one there. So very simply, that's just like an overflow splitter. So we'll pop in a lift, aiming that way. Now thinking about it, this might have to go up and over a few other things. So that's where it might get messy. That's why I wanted to separate out the lines. Is this okay? No, this is okay. This is above where it needs to be, so that's fine. So that's going to travel all the way down here, and then eventually arrive into this one. Yeah? They should be at the same height. Yes, cool. Alright, so this is just going to be a simple merger then. And I'll just do this for a second, just to get my anchor point. There we go. And then we get our belt. I'll just times it by 4. There we go. Right, so these belts are going to be too long to connect into each other, so somewhere along the kind of halfway point, we'll have to drop a stackable pole. So bring that stackable pole up, and we should be able to just connect straight into there. And this one can connect straight over there. And just like that, we've done it, you know? So we just have to set this now to say overflow out the left. Yeah, so whatever goes straight through, overflow goes out the left, up and over, and it flows down. So this should be the 35. The extra 35 makes its way down to the original, which is short 35, and it merges on there. And because it's only 325 on the belt, adding the extra 35 should be totally fine. Belt speed can handle it. So now I'm just going to match that with the upstairs portion of it, and just do this for the final column as well. Alright, so it looks a little bit worse than it is. It's just quite simple, actually. But we have the 3 overflow lines all running now on the bottom and on the top. Nice and even. So that should sort it out, I think. We'll find out when we turn it all on. I guess in the future when we upgrade it all, we'll know for sure. But yeah, everything should run at 100% then. What this has done, though, inadvertently has sort of blocked me in a bit for trying to get some of the material out. These are our outputs, and they are flowing to the left. So what we'll probably have to do is then go, you know, even go higher and get some of the rotors and the stators out of this place without bumping into stuff too much. Alright, so I guess the next thing for me then is just to bring these belts all the way back and around now. I didn't do that initially because I just wasn't entirely sure if this was going to work out, but it has, so now I can work my way back. But yeah, should be straightforward enough.
It's always the famous last words. It should be straightforward enough, but it never is it? You think I'd learn, you know? How am I so stupid that I make the same mistake over and over and over again? What is it? It's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and over again. Well, I've saved you some of the time of having to worry about that because I've cut out a lot of the work that I did over those 3 days because it was really boring and really repetitive. Nobody needs to see me standing on a belt saying, oh, to the 5th decimal place what the 7th good in this production chain is going to be doing in the future. What would be better is if we just turn on the damn thing and watch it work. At least I think that would be more fun. as an example of one of the things that I was working on and changing, all of these assemblers, I was saying that their output is flowing to the left. Makes it a little awkward to go up and over all the different belts that we have flowing into the motors and all of this stuff. So instead, the output's now on the right, but that meant flipping every single merger and redrawing all the belts. Takes quite a long time. Same kind of thing was happening over at the constructors, and a similar thing is happening at the end assemblers that are going to be doing the motors. So trust me, the stuff I cut out was just really boring. So where are we at right now? Well, all the foundations are in place, the machines are all good to go, trucks are hooked up and have their routes done, and they've actually done their first lap, so they're already full of stuff. So, of course, 2 of them are making their way out to the coal extraction point number 4, and 1 of them is going to the iron extraction point number 2. You can see the iron one there, and there's 2 coal. Of course, trucks, they love to mess about, so that one's phased through the wall when I arrive to this area. But it is, logically, actually just there waiting underneath the truck station. The trucks do not have power. Well, you know, they're fueled, but the truck stations do not have power, so they haven't unloaded yet. So I haven't turned this factory on. There's definitely going to be some kinks here or there that'll need to be resolved, but generally speaking, I think we're ready to go. Now, the process of turning on this factory is quite involved. The first stage should be easy enough. We're just going to grab a power pole up from here, drag it down, I don't know, here, and we'll connect it into this one, thus giving us life. Now, what that's going to enable us to do is allow our trucks to start feeding in their ore. So the iron ore is now making its way into our double group of refineries, making its way down the manifold, of course, and our water extractors are now online, pushing out the water along this Mark II pipe that's going to then feed around into both of these groups. So we can maybe chill for a minute, wait for the first batches of iron to come out, and then just follow the chain and see where they go. The next thing that we're going to have to do is hop over to the other factory, the copper Caterium one, find the blocks that we need to mess with and turn them on in the appropriate manner. If you remember, there's a very specific way to do it. We have to turn on the water extractors first, then the refineries, and then make sure that the belt release system goes off properly so that the ore gets fed in after the water. And that should be all good. We can see our trucks making their way back out now. We've got some green lights. That's what I like to see. First batches of iron ingots, quite simply, should be rolling out. Brings a tear to my eye. Alright, let's follow it around. Right, so the iron ingot's going to be traveling along with its sister batch into the quadruple sectors of foundries, or segments, whatever you want to call them. So, of course, we have 2 rows of refineries. We now have 4, like being evenly split into 4 rows of foundries, top and bottom, and they're getting the coal from the other side. So if we just had a quick hop out this way, you can, of course, see just about that the coal is rolling along this way, evenly split as well. So thankfully, truck stations have 2 outputs, that makes splitting into a group of 4 super easily. Super easy. Alright, so the first batches of steel, if they haven't already, should be rolling out any moment. There we go. We can see them now. Alright, so these belts are going to be traveling down and along this way into our large batch of constructors over this way, but as you can see, we have some red lights. That's on purpose. I have a power switch over there, so we'll turn that all on once some of the steel and the copper gets backed up, because it's going to take a while for the manifold to take effect, so we'll just let it get backed up while we go over and turn on the copper right now. So the best way I can think to do that is we're going to take this hypertube upstairs. Actually, I could probably just run straight over, but no, we'll go up here. I can drive over. Actually, it might make it even quicker. Bonk. Alright, so we're going to make our way over to the Copper Caterium factory. I could go in on that entrance, but I'll tell you what, we're going to go in at the far entrance, run over to the power room, as that's where we're going to be doing everything, as we turn on H&I block, as we mentioned earlier. Alrighty, so we've arrived. So, interestingly, this bottom right belt here, that one, is the one we're going to be paying attention to, because this is the H&I group belt. So that copper ore that's coming in, it just goes straight downstairs into the belt release room, where it gets sunk in an awesome sink. It just gets recycled, basically. When we turn off that awesome sink, it'll actually then flow out this way, thanks to an overflow splitter that we have. So that is what we're going to be trying to activate, so that we can fill up the refineries first with water. So we just find the block here, refinery block H, activate the refinery, hopefully they're all good and they have their power. And then we just have to activate the water. So water extractor HI. Yeah, quite interesting actually. There was still some ore on the belt, so that ore is now rolling around and in. And we'll actually start producing a little bit of copper ingots, slightly ahead of schedule. But this copper ore will run out. It's not going to last too long. This is just what was on the belt from a previous activation that I must have been testing a long time ago. Alright, that's what you like to see. The water extractors have their power, and of course only 3 out of the 5 are firing. That's because our best belt speed is 480 per minute. Once we get 780 per minute, we can fire all 5, but for now, we can only do 16 out of the 26 refineries, or 32 out of the 52 potentials. So, that's all well and good. We'll have to run back upstairs now. We'll quickly just check on and see if that copper that was just kind of left over on the belt has run out. Yes, it has. So there's no copper coming in, which means the refineries that are firing right now are just going to burn through that little bit of copper that they have, and then just fill up with water. Yes, they still have a couple cycles left to go, but this one's full of water already, as is this one. And I think we want to look 8 deep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This one. So if this is full, which it isn't, 31.24, but by the time we run over to the power control room now, it'll probably be full. So, it's time to go. Let's release the belts. We need to get one of those little buggies that takes you around this place. And we have... there's always little jobs to do in this place. Always little things left undone. Can't have that. God forbid someone sees this someday. Well, I guess I do give out my save, actually. Alright, here we are then. So, the belt release. Those are colored in green. So we're looking for H and I. So it's a belt lock system that's on. So the lock is on, so we turn off the lock. That means now copper ore downstairs should start flowing. Let's just double check it to make sure that's working. Yes, it has. Right, so we can see it's this one here. That's now flowing along nicely, and that's going to be making its way upstairs and making its way all the way around the factory. Basically from here to all the way somewhere over there. So it's a really long distance, about 400 meters in total, if you include the turns. And just like that, we can see the proper copper ore now making its way over and into all of our machines. You love to see it. You love to see it. Now, this is where the ingots will be flowing out once they kind of get fed up. Alright, so we can see that the refineries are firing, so that's working just fine. And the first batches of copper ingots are now making their way upstairs. We love to see it. Yes. Okay, cool. So let's go upstairs now and see where this is going. Alright, here we are. There's some redundant belts there, but this is the important part. 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 belts are now taking in the copper ingots. And we're going to be sending that along our new sky bridge over towards the silicon factory and down to the motor factory basement, I guess. Now, little bits would have already made their way over. Yeah, so we can see some of the belts are actually full. That's quite cool. That's good. Actually, it's really good. So we'll turn on now the belt release. Or sorry, we'll turn on all the constructors that are down here. And they'll start consuming all of these copper ingots, which are now just completely backed up, which is great. It's so cool, right? All our steel is in position, the copper is now in position, so all of these guys are just waiting to get what they need. So let's make it happen. Oh, simultaneous pressing of the stuff. I love it. Absolutely love it. And that will slow down. We're going to get a nice big boost of wire and steel pipe, but soon after it'll start to slow down as the manifold actually starts to try and fill every machine. But we can... Oh, look at the symmetry on this. You love to see it. It's what it's all about. Oh my god. Nice, yeah, everything's working so far. I'm not seeing any empty belts or any problems here. So far. There we go. Steel pipe and wire is now rolling out of all our constructors. Oh my god, the volume is actually so high straight away. I thought it'd be like really... I mean, it kind of is a bit patchy, but... I suppose all the machines are ready and primed to go, so it's fired off a big load straight up. Yeah, looking good though. Just, it's higher volume than I thought it would be. So... We'll follow this wire. This is going to be heading into here and then getting divided up and into all these different groups. So up and over. Sorry, not up and over. I just mean one goes in the bottom, one goes up and over that way. The remnants of which are going to merge across and come down into here in the future. So we'll see that later. Is that right? Have I hooked that up right? Yes. Okay, good. Just making sure it wasn't steel pipe going into a wire belt. It's all good. Oh, look at that. The volume is so thick, and it's 3 layers deep. Absolutely love to see it. I'm just so surprised nothing's gone wrong yet. That being said, that doesn't look right. What's going on here? Is this not a, Oh, it's a regular splitter. Oh, this belt isn't connected right then. I thought it was maybe a smart splitter, but it's not. The next one over is. Yeah, there we go. Well, speak of the devil, you know, it's like there's no problems. There was a problem right there. It's just a belt that wasn't properly connected to the splitter. Now, this one is overflow, so nothing should really ever go out this way. I doubt anything will ever even go out this way until we upgrade the belt, so the last row over there might never fill. But that's fine. Unless these things slow down and it gets backed up, it might do it. You can actually see the numbers that are traveling here now, so that should be 270 after the split, 368.58 on this one. I have to write these things down to help me remember. 76.8 after the split. That's the overflow. Should really say after overflow. That's good enough. I was going to write OF, but it just made me think of OnlyFans. Wouldn't make any sense in this context, but I just can't write that now. People will think it's a hidden message. Check out my pipes, you know? There's just so many ways that this could go. Alright, so some of the changes that were made. As I mentioned, these assemblers aren't sending their output to the left. Instead, they're sending their output to the right. So it's way better for the neatness of the factory. So it meant changing all of the belts around, which is super annoying, but I'll try to give out a blueprint in the future. It's not going to happen the day this video comes out, but soon after, very soon after. So hopefully by the time most people watch, the blueprints will be there if you want them with the correct orientation. So the stators are flowing out down onto this belt and then just running along and then turning left, joining the final outputs here. The same is happening on the bottom. So the rotors and the stators all make their way out onto this left side and they merge up with each other because the volume isn't that high. And then they go along the bottom belt and the top belt respectively. So these two belts then travel along, stators and rotors. And those mergers don't need to be there, it's just a turn, but it turns and then splits evenly into these groups. So all these assemblers. So obviously we're just feeding in the stators and the rotors themselves, and then at the end, the manifold continues up and all the way down. So it's a very long manifold, but it doesn't really matter. The volume is obviously going to be fine, it'll fill them eventually. But it's just like, oh, this is technically the last machine on the row, and so is this one, you know? So it'll take quite a while for those guys to get anything. Now, what I haven't done is actually hooked up the outputs for the motors just yet, so we can do that now. So Mark II, we have our ceiling floor holes here, so we'll just do this. So we'll Mark II that out of its mind and connect that one in. And connect this one. This one actually connects to the top. There we go. Our first motors. It's as easy as that. Oh my god, it was hell. It wasn't really hell. It's just like, it's tedious. The planning was actually, I felt, fairly straightforward. It all seems to have worked. Obviously, I won't really fully know until everything's 100%, you know, with Mark V belts and everything, but it's again this situation where volume is like my biggest enemy, where it's like, oh, because of the volume, you have to divide up so many different belts. Bit of a pain. But once we get to actual factories that are like fused frames, and that's when hell really begins, because it's difficult to work out those numbers. It's not just difficult to provide the volume, the numbers are hard. We had 3 assemblers that weren't connected there, but they should be good to go now. Right, so the motors are stopping before they go any further. I think I'm missing a belt connecting into the storage containers, so we can do that, and that'll be the final thing. We'll just, I'll keep the camera rolling while we just have a look over what we've done. The wire has slowed down now, which is anticipated. It does look a little slower than I'd like, but I think that's just the manifold or the copper even taking a while to get going, because, yeah, we're not seeing many copper ingots roll down, and that should be fine. It's just, it's going to take a while to speed that up. Steel is moving in, wire and steel pipe moving out. We're looking good. Like I said, I didn't turn any machines off in anticipation of just feeding 480. They're all just running, so this place will stutter until we upgrade it. Just because working at a whole second set of rates for using less belt speed would have just been a pain. It's built to 780 specifications, so that's just what we're going to wait for till we get, and then it will operate at 100% ideally. But it will be a little fluctuation-y until then. We're actually nowhere near hitting the max consumption, which is somewhat surprising, really. But anyways. Alright, I've been pooped out. And here we are. Yes, so I never hooked these up. Okay, let's connect them in. Aren't they beautiful? Motors, 130 per minute once the factory's at full speed. Until then, it'll be about 60 or 70 per minute. And they'll be going into these 2 containers. So there we go. So the nice thing is we've got this empty floor space now for the next video where I'm going to be building modular engines. So to do modular engines, what we're going to need is smart plating. So smart plating requires some rotors and reinforced plates. So I'll have to set that up. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. We have rubber, and obviously we just have the motors, both in this location. The next one will be adaptive control units. So we have the circuit boards, the heavy modular frames, and the computers. I don't have the automated wiring though. So we need stators plus wire. The stators I can make over in the Copper Caterium factory, and we can make the automated wiring over there, or feed both stators and cables into here, again, and make automated wiring here. Circuit boards we have here, computers we have here, and heavy modular frames we have here. And then the last one is versatile framework. That I'm going to make in a one-off batch because I have a bunch of modular frames and steel beams built up. I'm not going to build a dedicated factory for it. I'm just going to make a series of assemblers and let them just crank out. I think we need 2,500 and we could do that. So something I'm starting to really notice now is that the volume is starting to increase for stators and rotors as we're starting to produce more wire. It really isn't that knock-on effect of the the manifold all the way at the base level of copper ingots. So that means that we're now feeding this area a little bit more quickly, and if we wait maybe 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes I think shouldn't take any longer than that to really saturate the machines and have the manifold running as best it can. It's always going to be a little stop-starty, like I said, because we're not doing full throughput, but we should be, out of the 130 per minute motors, we should be targeting 80 per minute, I would say. And it'll be fun, because on the next video slash thing for this game is going to be a stream, and then I'll do the actual video of the final components for this space elevator phase. But the stream should be good. We'll be putting on some of the cosmetics, making the place easier to get around, touching up some of the documentation or the signage within the factory so that we can find things. And also I want to have better methods of traversal, so that's something I want to kind of focus on. So just some of the tidying up little bits for the factory. It will be good to do a little stream, and also troubleshooting if anything does go wrong that we need to kind of clean up. You seem to be doing well. Anyway, yeah, so that really is going to be it. We'll end where we started. That's the motor factory. Alright, thank you guys very much for watching. Remember, if you like this kind of thing, please do subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, and share it with anyone who may be interested. That's all from me, and I'll see you in the next one.